Okay, as I want you all to see, we are currently on a different device. According to the way the uploading thing works with my tablet, I decided to get on here for this moment while the last video is uploading to Amazon Photos and do a little QuickTime show on here. And I just wanted to give you all a little show of scraps that are to be worked on and to be made into new carving projects in the coming year. Some of these were ones where I've had the little scraps for over a year, since cutting things out over a year ago, and then kind of didn't get around to carving everything as I kind of had so much to deal with in life. But it just finally comes a point where I can finally make a little better use of it and get around to doing a little more. But one thing I want to show in particular is what might probably be some of the oldest of the scraps I've cut out. There's one here. It came out in a good shape to be an armadillo. And you can see on here I've already drawn the lines on this side and kind of, I haven't drawn all the lines on all the sides yet, but since I do want to make two, I decided I'd make them like that. So that is one thing to show you. And I'd say from what I'm seeing, these are made from mahogany, as I can tell, or African mahogany. I guess I have to look back and figure out which, but I think genuine mahogany. So I'll put those away. Also, there were a couple scraps of walnut that came out in a shape where I could sort of like carve little gourds from them. They came out like this, and I didn't get around to doing that, needed to do it, but that is something that I'll have another year to eventually get around to doing sometime. There's a few things I have to show here, trying to get all the older scraps out of the way first. You've seen how I've carved the foxes from cherry and walnut in videos. Well, I've got a couple of blanks of them that are made from Kentucky coffee tree here. So that is one more thing that in the next year I'm going to hope to try to carve. And as for the scraps, trying to get them from like around the oldest to the newest as I'm trying to do, it's like I've got a couple little pieces of Kentucky coffee tree, which I would say they're kind of made in a way that they could look like little moles coming out of the ground. So I think I am going to try to carve those out to look a little more similar to that, I'd say. And of many more things I'm going to show, there's some pieces I had come out. Whenever I was sawing out the horses, had little pieces come out that were a good shape for bats. So I'm also hoping that maybe between now and next Halloween, I might be able to get those bats carved out of that wood. And lots of things here. There's these little scraps here that were left over from sawing out something and given their shapes. There's any number of things they could be made into, maybe some peacocks. A lady was at one of my shows last November, and she asked me if I made a peacock. I told her about some that I sewed out of jeans, which you've probably seen in some pictures before that I've taken, and those ones, but she asked me if I could make one out of wood for her, and that is something that I'm thinking in the next year I'm going to need to try to do. So we've got these little good fellas here that could possibly be made into that. So we've kind of got to put them aside. There's also little things that shall come along next, and we're getting things a little separated, mixed up here. I've got a couple of pieces that I think of tamarind here, which I think they are probably good shape from which to maybe carve out some crescent-shaped moon faces. That'll be a good thing to have for the future. There's a lot to show here. There's some random tamarind scraps. I'd say I'm going to find something to do with these eventually, something. And sometimes it can take a while to come up with an idea, but you just get around to it. You get there eventually, and you find the way to do it. It works just fine, just like it is. And there's little scraps like these that were left over from the tamarind and the Kentucky coffee tree, and I've kind of got a few of these here and got 3 more just like them. I could probably make those into little guinea pigs or iguanas or something like that, kind of like what I've done before. We've kind of got to keep things a little separated here by the type of scrap that they are, and I say some of these are going to go as they will. So, and it's going to come down to the fact that there's a couple of pieces here. There could be some kind of little bird for these little pieces of tamarind left over to be shaped like. I don't know what that is going to be yet, but I'll give you all a closer look, let you all see what they're really like. We have yet to decide on something about that. There's other little pieces to come along. I've got like 4 little pieces of cherry that come out in a shape like this, and we're going to find a way to use those, maybe for a little fish or some kind, something like that. And then we come up with little ones that are like walnut that are of the same shape. Can't recall exactly what I was cutting out when it came down to me coming up with these, but that was just a little work that came that way at the time, and just recently came up with these little walnut scraps that I think are a good shape from which I could carve out little herons or pelicans or something like that. That will also be of good work to show, and do need to show you all a few little original blanks here. I've got like some blanks where you see that there was some cherry that I cut into these scraps and made it into these blanks for little flat plane carved rabbits. I've sold a few black flat planed carved rabbits before from walnut or something like that, and even though I'd say the shape was actually, the original shape was a scrap left over from something else, I decided to trace it onto paper and save the shape from which to cut out many more, and I've got a couple ones from mahogany here that are also going to go to the work. There just so happened to be some pieces that were left over from cutting out some pieces of mahogany recently, which when it came down to their shape, there were a couple ones that came out one good size for one type of medieval type of horse. I carved a couple ones out of Kentucky coffee tree, but they had legs given their shape. And there's kind of a couple more that are also of mahogany, but they're of a slightly different angle, slightly different shape, slightly different trace line. And I've probably shown before that I had these little scraps cut out that came out like little mountain goats that were left over from sawing out sheep and squirrels and things like that from the chestnut wood. I'm going to try to put them away here and show you that. And finally, this is the last one I'm going to show, but had a certain piece of butternut that was like a whole piece of wood like this thick about, and came out to where after certain cutting it came out in this particular shape. So I sort of like sawed it out into 4 little equally width pieces and kind of made them where I drew some lines into them from which they could be made into llamas. And as you see, I kind of got the leg line put into that one. There's probably a few more I have yet to put that into, so that's going to be quite an adventure. I do have a little more to show that's going to come later on, and probably even a little bit more in this box that has yet to be seen, but I'm going to keep coming on here and keep showing more. Hope you all enjoy watching. Thank you. Goodbye.